Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the channel. We're going to be breaking down some running back early. I mean, it's the end of May right now in 2019. We're going to be looking real early into these running back rankings. I'm going to give you a top 10 for PPR. So full season format, yes, I normally cover daily fantasy sports. Depending on when you're watching this, I'll probably have some more if you're watching it farther into the future. It's the end of May, so if you're watching it later in the summer or even in the NFL season, this is just something that I'm doing right now while I'm producing a lot of daily fantasy sports content. That's all going to stay the same. I'm going to keep doing that, but I'm also going to plunge out some season-long fantasy football and some more fantasy football help and advice. So let's break down right into it. Welcome to the channel. My name is Sal Vetri. Like I said, I cover daily fantasy sports. I'm going to be covering fantasy football, getting deeper into it, and I just want to have some fun. I was breaking down into some of the data. I have a ton of data sheets right now, going through all of it for the running backs. I did the quarterbacks last week, just trying to find tendencies for my season-long leagues, for my daily fantasy football, Draftkings, FanDuel this upcoming year, and also some helpful advice for videos. So I thought this would be fun to do early in the year, and maybe you're watching this later in the summer. There'll probably be an updated video of this, but something cool to look into, and I really try not to do this from a standpoint of let me see what Fantasy Pros and all these other sites and ESPN and everybody has their rankings at and make sure I stick to those. No, I'm going to be doing my own type of rankings here. I'm going to be different, but very similar at the same time. Look, it's a top 10 for fantasy football. I'm trying to act as if I was on the clock and I had to rank where I would take running backs at this point. This is what I would do. It's not going to be the same as everybody, and I really don't want it to be the same as everybody because most of the time, everybody's not right. So let's break right down into it. If you could hit me with a like on this video, I greatly appreciate it. So excited to be doing some fantasy football content. It's only May, but I'm so excited. I apologize for the fire truck that's about to pass my house. There's a mini tornado going on right now here. And there's a lot of crazy things. I just sprinted home in it. I had to change all my clothes. I was damp. So let's let that fire truck pass. All right, fire truck and a bunch of cop cars just passed. Let's get right down into it. I'm going to start. I have them in different tiers, and I have my running back rankings all the way down to the 40s. But these top 10, they're going to be split up across 3 different tiers. You won't see all of tier 3. If you want me to do 11 through 20 or 11 through 25, 30, let me know in the comments down below if you want to see me do more of this. And let me know, who is your top 5? Your top 5 PPR format, point per reception. So keep that in mind. Top 5 going into 2019 at this point in time, whenever you're watching this video. Let's start it off. I'll release them one by one, so there's actually some reasoning for people to stay through to the end, right? First, Ezekiel Elliot. So here's the thing. When you're trying to pick a first overall running back for PPR this year, there's obviously some clear guys out there. There's Ezekiel Elliot, who I have as my number 1 overall, not only because of the reasons that I have listed there in my notes, and there's a ton more data behind it, really a lot. Look, you have Zeke, you have Saquon Barkley, the guy who led the league in total scrimmage yards last year, over 100 reception yards, 2,000 yards plus on the year in scrimmage yards, but so did Zeke have that. He had that as well. And then you had Christian McCaffrey, a guy who had 107 receptions, breaking all kinds of records in the receiving game, being 4th in goal line carries. Look, we're going to get into all of these guys. They're still top players for sure. But the reason that I like Ezekiel Elliott more so than some of these other guys, and I'll hit on that, mainly for Zeke, yes, his efficiency numbers aren't there as much as some other guys that you would like to see, but neither are a lot of guys in general. Economies by scale is kind of winning out for the running back positions. Who can get the most touches? In terms of fantasy points and in terms of PPR format, the best opportunity or one of the best correlators of real fantasy points compared to the real NFL games is opportunities. So for running backs, targets and carries. How many times they actually get to touch the ball to score, right? That makes sense. Zeke was a guy who had 381 touches, 29 more than anybody else last year. He had 77 receptions on the year. That's 5.1 per game. Yes, Ezekiel Elliott had 77. That's more than he had in his first 2 years combined. And that's something that might be due to regress, and people might think it's going to regress, but I don't think it does. Look, when Amari Cooper came in the second half of the year, Zeke was still getting his check down passes. Zeke was more so in this offense, whether it was just screens, check downs, swing outs. Zeke was all over the place. His receiving game became a lot more elite last year, and people making fun of his weight or whatever it might have been all during the offseason, he's kind of put those rumors to rest by showing you that he's very much shredded and in shape. So his receiving game took a huge step forward this year. And the reason that I'm going to have him first over some of these other guys, not just because of the total touches, and at his age of 23, I'm not really worried about that wearing on his body yet. If this guy was 27, 28, maybe even 26, and he's going to continue to see 350 plus touches, both receiving and rushing a year, then I'd be like, okay, one of these years he's going to fall off. He's 23 years old. This is his 4th year in the league. So I'm very fine with that. The fact that he had pretty much 1 game more than anybody else in terms of his overall touches, and he only played 15 games. Let me say that again. He only played 15 games, and he still led the league in touches by 29 over any other running back. Yeah, give me the guy who's going to get me the most opportunities. And it's not just that he's going to get you the most opportunities. He's still getting in the red zone. He's still leading his team in red zone percentage by a far margin. There's nobody else touching the ball in the red zone in terms of in that backfield other than Zeke for the most part. The receptions coming up, you love to see that. And his offensive situation is just better right now than the guy who I'm going to have second, which you can probably tell right away who that guy is based on me saying the offensive situation. Saquon Barkley. Rookie of the goddamn year. Penn State's own, baby, right here. Saquon Barkley. Love him so much. I would be choosing him second overall behind Ezekiel Elliot. And you can make your arguments all you want. A big part of this, and there's so many things to like about Saquon last year. One of the things not to like was that he had a low success rate. And that's nothing to do with Saquon. This guy can dance. This guy can make people miss. He was number one, as I have it written right here, number one in elusive rating. That means he's making guys miss the first, the second, the third. He's just breaking tackles. That's exactly how you get extra yards per touch. And that's exactly how you accumulate more fantasy points. It's one of the best indicators outside of just opportunities and total yardage. So he has to win on an economies of scale production, which is what I have wrote down here as well. Economies of scale production means he needs a lot of opportunities, both in the receiving game and in the backfield. And he's going to get all of them. He's the main bell horse back there. And he's going to be able to break off his long runs and get his touchdowns. Look, I have him ranked number 2 overall. He's phenomenal. But compared to number 1 with Zeke, the offensive situation is the biggest deal here. Last year, the offense was as good as it's going to get for Saquon when you're trying to compare it to this year. Look, there's no Odell Beckham Jr. I don't have to talk about the elephant in the room not being there. But other than that, last year, Saquon made some phenomenal plays and played really at a peak level as a rookie. I understand that he's going to be getting better, especially as a second-year player in this league. But when you take an offensive threat like Odell out of there, it's a lot easier for the defenses to key on the one guy who could potentially beat them or maybe just ruin their day or ruin their shutout against this Eli Manning-led team. So give me the Cowboys offense. Give me that situation for Zeke, a guy who's going to get just more overall touches in the game over Saquon's. But Saquon's still number 2 overall. He was second in red zone rushing percentage, third in red zone carries. Look, this guy is a phenomenal player. He was great last year, led the league in overall scrimmage yards, was like trying to break the record at one point the way that he was just performing. He's a great player. It's just the offensive situation around him that's going to boat him down to all the way down to number 2, right? Number 3, Christian McCaffrey, a guy who I trusted what Ron Rivera said last year in saying Christian McCaffrey is going to be a 3-down back. He's going to be our goal line back. And I said, you know what? I can see that happening. This guy is bound to take that next step forward, a guy that they traded up for to pick that early in the draft. So McCaffrey here, he's at number 3. He doesn't come in any higher than that, even though he had over 107, I believe exactly, receiving yards or receptions last year. Played absolutely phenomenal. It felt like he was scoring 2 touchdowns a week. He was the goal line back. He was 4th in red zone carries last year. Not on his team, no, in the entire league, yes, and that's with Cam Newton being there. They've already come out and said that Cam Newton is going to be piped down quite a bit this year in terms of rushing attempts and rushing upside, so that kind of hurts your Cam Newton stock. That helps your Christian McCaffrey stock, except the fact that Ron Rivera has already said that he's going to be seeing less work come his way. Now, I bought into what Ron Rivera said last year in terms of McCaffrey getting way more work, and he got it. I sort of buy into what he's saying here, but less work can be 5% less work. And if you're telling me that he's going to get 5% less work, and that means that he's only going to get 100 receptions instead of 107, well, then I'm still fine picking Christian McCaffrey as a top 3, and you could even argue a top 2 or 1 pick. The fact that he had the 3rd most touches last year at his size, and he's put on weight, 6th best in success rate, 6 yards per touch in both receptions and in the backfield. He had one of the highest catch percentages in the NFL, not just between, and obviously running backs are going to have a higher one, but not just between running backs, but also wide receivers. And he was 7th in DR. And I should say what DR is. DR is just pretty much how much better he is than the neutral player. So how much more yards Christian McCaffrey produced than anybody else in the league. He was 7th in that department. And that's pretty good for about the size that he was, making people miss, up there in elusive rating. 107 receptions in 2018, like I mentioned. Absolute stud. I think that he does see a drop in production, but it's just natural regression. If he comes down even 10%, and you tell me that he finishes with 95 receptions this year, that's really good. So give me Christian McCaffrey at number 3. Keep in mind, this is PPR format, everybody. So number 4. And this one's a little bit murky. Alvin Kamara. Look, the fact that Mark Ingram's not there anymore, Mark Ingram gets shipped off to Baltimore. Great running back still, but gets shipped off to Baltimore. You have Alvin Kamara here as the lone guy until they go and get Latavius Murray. Now, Alvin Kamara, those first 4 weeks in 2018 will look like the best running back to ever play in the NFL when you had, Gale Sanders times 3,000, Saquon Barkley plus Gale Sanders plus AP, whoever you wanted to call him. Alvin Kamara was making guys miss, making incredible plays, hurdling people, just getting loads of production, both in the end zone, red zone efficiency, touchdowns, and actually just pure scrimmage yards. And like I said, making players miss. Yards after the catch, yards per carry, whatever it is, they were all up. those first 4 games without Mark Ingram. He looked phenomenal. If you're going to tell me that he is that player getting that same workload, 20 to 30 touches, like 20 as a bottom number total, and he's going to be getting 7 to 10 to 11 receptions, not just targets, receptions a game, then yeah, he's my number 1 overall back. But I don't think that happens. I think Latavius Murray was picked out to be this Mark Ingram role. He fits the bill very well, and I don't think they went out of their way to get him. You also had Sean Payton coming out and saying last year that we don't want Alvin Kamara to have that big of a role. That's not the type of player he is. So I don't think 7-8 months later that changes. They don't want Alvin Kamara, and he's not built to be that 30 carry guy. He can do it for 4 weeks. He might even be able to do it for 6 weeks, maybe even an entire season, but it's going to wear on his type of body. He doesn't have that muscle, that oomph factor like a guy like Mark Ingram or Latavius Murray have. He was second in success rate last year. In elusive rating, he was top 2, only behind Saquon Barkley. And third in DR, which is just basically, like I said with Christian McCaffrey, how much better he was, how much more above replacement he added to total yardage. He was third in that number, Todd Gurley being number 1, RIP Todd Gurley. Not really, but fourth in DVOA is just how much better he was on a per-play basis than everybody else in the league. And then second in red zone carries. So yeah, Alvin Kamara, even with Mark Ingram there, was still getting the bulk of those red zone carries. He was still being the goal line back. So that does bode well, and that's really why I keep him at 4th. If you told me that Latavius Murray was going to come in and take all these goal line carries, I'd be worried. But if he is going to fit that Mark Ingram bill, he's not going to get all the goal line carries. And Alvin Kamara, really, for the most part, is going to be the goal line back, which is interesting, but it's true. So Kamara at 4, that is my tier 1. So what I mean by tiers now is these next guys are sort of in a different level. Like I put those guys on this own pedestal. This is the second best pedestal. And this is where it starts to get a little bit different, I would say. Those top 4, probably you can mix and match them. But for the most part, that's where you're going to see. Le'Veon Bell, I have at 5th, and I have here ride the offseason storm. And again, if you're watching this later in the year, maybe everything is settled, but right now there are rumors of they don't even want Le'Veon Bell, or Adam Gase doesn't want him. They want to trade away. Just some ridiculous stuff. Look, Le'Veon Bell, in most years, and I was about to take him in the first round at like pick number 11. Thank God somebody took him at 10th before me because 0 fantasy points last year. No real data to go off of last year. Look, he's been out of the league for a year. That's not great. Going out of the NFL for a year, even if you are training on your own, that's a big adjustment to come back into it. I would imagine so, at least. And when you think about it, not just being a year, right? It's a year plus the offseason before that. So it's like a year and a half of not being in the NFL. That's a lot to kind of come back right into the league. So that's my worry there with Le'Veon Bell. But if we're just betting on pure talent and we're betting on the fact that this guy is still young, he's still in the peak or the prime of his career. If he would have played last year, he's still right there. I mean, the reason he was holding out was for some record high or some big running back deal, which would have been paying him as if he was a peak running back. So he's likely the third down back here. Yes, they have some young guys there who would worry me a little bit, but you don't get Le'Veon Bell, your off-season huge spectacular signing, superstar signing, for no reason. The upside at this average draft pick, which is probably going to be in a 12-man league, right around 7 or 8, depending on where some wide receivers get going, maybe even 9 or 10. The upside is going to be huge because this can very well be the guy who leads the league if he gets that same type of role. Yes, it's nowhere near the same offense as you had in Pittsburgh with Big Ben, with Antonio Brown, and however many other tight ends carrying away the middle of the field and actually a decent line there as well, and just that system in general. I mean, you see whoever, if it's Samuel, if it's James Conner. Excuse me, my alarm's going off. If it's Samuel, if it's James Conner, whoever it might be coming into that role, that's a great system. So those are a lot of the worries and concerns, but I'm betting on pure talent here. Le'Veon Bell at 5, I think, is more so a steal. And the reason that I don't have this man at number 6, at number 5, and you're going to see who it is, in Melvin Gordon, is really just injury concern and also just efficiency. So there's 2 things here with Melvin Gordon. Consistency-wise, yeah, he's as consistent as they come. Last year, and this is a big reason why, is just the offense in general gets to run through him. He'll get you your 25 touches a game, and he'll get you a lot of red zone work. So consistency, he was one of 2 guys before he got injured last year, and Saquon was the other one, who had 20-plus PPR points every single week at the running back position. That's pretty good. That's really good when you consider all the other running backs in the league. McCaffrey at that time struggling early. Kamara having a huge early start to the season. Zeke playing well all season long. So that's really good. But the injury concerns are the biggest thing. This guy is yet to stay healthy for an entire season, it seems, and he's not efficient. He's a guy who only averages like 3 yards per carry. And you have a guy in Austin Ekeler out there, and that worries me. It does worry me that there are chances of Ekeler, since Gordon, yes, he's going to get a lot of load. He can carry the load, and maybe these injuries will set him back a little bit. These are the concerns with Gordon, is that Ekeler comes in and he takes 25%, 20% of the workload to start the year, and then it slowly creeps up. So maybe that's a 20 touch to 5 touch to start the year, or whatever it might be. But then you start to get to a 20 to 10 split, and now Ekeler's in there for 33% of the load. And that's kind of what we were seeing last year. Ekeler had games where he was getting 12 to 15 touches. Some of those were during blowout run, right? Garbage time, but some of them weren't. So And Eckler fit the bill pretty well when he stepped in. Had a couple of struggling games, but played really well in a couple of them as well. So Gordon, I have at 6. But here's the guy who I think during the offseason at number 7 is going to rise the most for me. And there's a few rookies, but they're just not top 10 potential yet. And I'll talk about them later, or maybe in later videos. Josh Jacobs, Geis coming back off of an injury, not playing last year during his rookie season. Some of these guys who I think are going to do really well in the NFL. I have them ranked really high compared to some other drafts or some other boards, but not in the top 10. So number 7. Probably my favorite spot in the entire top 10 for running backs. Probably my favorite spot in the first 2 rounds. If you get Joe Mixon in the second round of any drafts this year, feel really good. I got him in the 3rd round last year, and I felt great. He only played 13 games. He was injured last year, right? Something with his eye, whatever it was. I don't even know what it was. But he was injured. He only played 13 full games, started 14, and then left in like the first half of the 1 game. So he was 8th in carries last year. This guy's a 3-down back. They went out and they pretty much drafted a replica of Giovanni Bernard. And what that tells me is, yeah, Joe Mixon is still going to be the 3-down back. Maybe we'll have a change-up back in Giovanni Bernard when he comes back. Joe Mixon still had around 50 receptions, though, in 13 games, right? He was averaging a little over 3 receptions per game. Not targets. He was averaging around 5 targets per game. That's really good. So he's a 3-down back that has catching upside. Elite pass catcher, if I will. Played really well. Biggest riser this year for me, and what that pretty much means is I've already had him. I had him at 10 to start the year when I was doing this just for fun like a month ago. He's already up to 7 for me. There's just so many things, watching tape, looking into the numbers, that is really good about Joe Mixon. Here's the thing that I have a star by it. 4.9 yards per attempt. I hate that number, or yards per carry, whatever you want to call it. I hate that number because it doesn't break in. It's not advanced. It's not telling us anything. What yards per attempt is telling us, or yards per carry, is that's how much yards they got per carry. But what if their team's up huge and the team and they're just running out the clock? Or what if the team is down big and whatever it might be, they're playing softer defenses, they have an easier defense. That's why I like, or easier schedule. That's why, or you're in the, keep stopping myself, you're in the Saints division or Atlanta's division. It's just dirt easy to get some running yards against those defenses. So what I don't like about that is it doesn't really use a variable to kind of split that apart, like a DVOA, right? So kind of put everybody on the level playing field. But I will only point it out because 4.9 yards per carry for a Bengals team that was rostering 3rd and 4th string quarterbacks last year, and a guy that was getting stacked boxes against him, is really impressive. We don't have to take anything out of that. We know the context of the Bengals offense last year. He was getting stacked boxes against him, and he was still grinding through and being very productive when his team was down 2 to 3 touchdowns. That's what I like out of him. He was 8th in DR last year, so yes, he was valuable. A top 10 running back in that position is valuable. And he was 4th in red zone rushing percentage. So yeah, he is the guy. He's the 3-down back. I love Joe Mixon this year. And there's a great chance by the time the draft comes, since we have murkiness around Le'Veon Bell, since we have murkiness around Melvin Gordon, whether it's Austin Eckler, or whether it's just injury concerns, I could very well see Joe Mixon making a climb up to 5th in PPR for me. And that's because I can very well see him in this 3rd year and really his 2nd year as the big dog out there. And the offense could only, hopefully you would imagine, get better after all these injuries are done with A.J. Green and whoever else might be out there. This whole Bengals team getting injured last year. Tyler Eifert again, backup tight ends. Obviously the quarterback. So I love Joe Mixon this year, and I think he's going to be going way too late in drafts, which is a reason why I might wait on him if I can get him as in a 12-man draft, 12 and 13, and get Mixon in the 2nd. But I'm fine reaching for Mixon if I feel like I have to. I really like him, and I'm hoping that the offseason kind of bodes well for him because I'm all over Mixon right now. James Conner at number 8. So James Conner last year absolutely dominated. I already touched on with Le'Veon Bell talk that this Steelers running back system is pretty phenomenal. Now, Antonio Brown's not out there, so the offense has to run differently, but Antonio Brown, for the most part, he was out there last year, of course, but not in the same capacity, not towards the end of the year. And James Conner, all season long from week 1, played extremely well. Not the greatest pass catcher, but he can get the job done, right? And by meaning pass catcher, yes, he's going to catch his passes. I can catch passes that are thrown 3 yards or at the line of scrimmage. Just making people miss, not the greatest at doing that. This system overall really helped him. Jalen Samuel is out there. That worries me. Jalen Samuel, a former tight end, is way better pass catcher in terms of just eliteness, right? Making players miss, actually catching passes downfield than James Conner. So Conner, I think for the most part, will be a 3-down back, but if it's obvious passing situations, you might get more, and it's 3rd and long or 3rd and medium, you might get more of Jalen Samuel out there. So right now I have Conner below Joe Mixon and below Melvin Gordon and all these players because of that reason. I think that Conner sees 85% of what he saw last year, which would be a really good fantasy season, a top 10 running back fantasy season, but it's just not enough to put him above some of these other guys because I think 15% of that work, whether it's on the ground, whether it's in the end zones, or whether it's really mainly in the receiving game, will be going to Jalen Samuel. It's also important to point out that he was 3rd in red zone rushing last year, which again is just your opportunities in the red zone. Obviously touchdowns are going to add huge bumps to your overall scoring. Ninth overall, Dalvin Cook. Might be a shock here for a lot of people. They probably have him ranked 14, 15, whatever it is. That's way too low. Look, if they have him ranked that low, that'll make me excited because I can get him definitely in the second round, maybe late second round. That's way too low. I don't know who you're putting above him. Nick Chubb, a guy whose passing numbers last year were probably a little bit too inflated, and Duke Johnson's going to be taking a lot of that stuff. And we'll get to Nick Chubb in a later video. Dalvin Cook, he started to flash his rookie year upside last year towards the end of the year, coming back from an injury. He was top 5 in elusive rating. There's a lot of things I can say. The reason I can't say too much is because he didn't have a full seasons of data, right? He had the injury. Coming back from it, and they really played around with him a little bit too much, putting him in before he was really due. But really, that last quarter of the season, we saw the Dalvin Cook, and this offseason, he's been looking really good. So Dalvin Cook might be a little bit bold. I have him at number 9 this year, and you can say what you want about him, but he's in a very similar situation, in my opinion, that Joe Mixon was last year, being a guy that was just playing hobbled his first year, / splitting work with one or two other guys out there, Latavius Murray, or whoever else might have been out there. Now Dalvin Cook, this is his team. There's no Murray out there. I expect Dalvin Cook to be the full run here. I believe, who did they get? Carlos Hyde or somebody in Minnesota? I forget exactly who. But whoever that guy was is a guy that you would want them to be getting. A guy who is a perfect backup, literally a backup, not a complimentary piece, the perfect backup to Dalvin Cook. I like Dalvin Cook as a 3 down back this year. He's a top 10 player in terms of running backs for me. In PPR formats, right? He's going to get, I would project at least 5, 6 targets a game. And the way that the NFL is going with more pass catching backs, I wouldn't be shocked if it's higher. Number 10, David Johnson. David M. Johnson. Motherfucking Johnson. DFJ. David effing Johnson. He has the likely largest upside here. He's going to go a lot as a second-round pick, definitely in 10-man leagues, probably in 12-man leagues, if not at the end. And the upside there is for him to be probably not the number 1 running back in fantasy, although that's still there. That's his ceiling, I would say. But top 3, top 5 for sure. And if you're going to get him as the 10th overall running back and the 15th overall pick, 16th, 17th, maybe even drops lower, that's really good. You're going to have this Kyler Murray experiment coming in, and it can go a bunch of different ways. Are you going to get a more athletic? Are you going to get a similar Baker Mayfield with Nick Chubb last year? But David Johnson, obviously a more elite pass catcher. This is a spot for David Johnson where you're getting him in drafts that I love it. I love it. I had David Johnson way higher, and then I had to kind of set myself back and look at some things. I had him at number 6 and then number 7 before I kind of finalized this list early on. There's just a lot of things to like. He's obviously getting up there in age, but he led the whole NFL in 74% of the rushes inside his red zone. 74%. So that means they ran the ball a lot in the red zone, 1, and that he was getting all of the work in the red zone. So, yeah, I like that. That just gives you a big boost overall in fantasy production. He's still getting targets. He started getting targets once they changed the offense over to Leftwich last year. That's really good to see. And now you have actually a playmaker. Josh Rosen, the guy who was stagnant, throwing the ball to the line of scrimmage whenever he did throw to David Johnson. And Johnson literally having to make 2 to 3 guys miss because he was daddling 8-man boxes all year. The fact that Murray is probably going to run this year, and even if he doesn't, he's got a great arm and he's just an incredible athlete, but he's probably going to run this year. That should open up stuff for David Johnson. And when it doesn't, a rookie quarterback. Who's the rookie quarterback's best friend? Sure, the tight end, but also the running back. And in a league this year, I would imagine last year, that this Cardinals offense is going to look at a bunch of other offenses. You can look at the Cowboys and Zeke's increased passing game, but really more so, look at the Saints with Alvin Kamara. Look at the Panthers with McCaffrey. Look at the Giants with Saquon Barkley. What was happening there? Even Joe Mixon to an extent. James Conner. What was happening there? Passing it out to a running back is much better than running the ball. Yes, if you're 50, 60 and watching this and you're going to tell me, you got to run the football. No, you don't. That's inefficient. That is inefficient when you can throw the ball to a superior athlete who knows how to make players miss in David Johnson at the line of scrimmage. He's easily going to be picking you up 4 to 5 yards, if not a lot more, every single time he touches the ball for the most part. And when they start biting on that and crashing, well, pump fake it and throw it down the field or hit a slant, and then you got a first down anyways. That's the way the NFL should be. I'm a 22-year-old kid sitting here in my apartment in State College, Pennsylvania, and I know that more so than 95% of the coaches. Maybe that's a little bit high. 85% of the coaches in the NFL right now that running the ball for 5 yards or swing passing it to your elite athlete who knows how to make people miss, i.e. Christian McCaffrey, i.e. Saquon Barkley, i.e. Alvin Kamara, is much more upside of happening of getting you 5+ yards than running the ball right up the gut or even to the corners. So that's where I like David Johnson this year. I like the fact that I do believe they're going to kind of elevate or innovate and develop into that type of offense. The fact that Kyler Murray's out there makes me even more optimistic. You have more athletes out there. Get rid of this old man, Larry Fitzgerald. Give me the Christian Kirks down the field. Open things up. And that league-leading 74% rushing inside the red zone really makes me like David Johnson. So that's my top 10. We can go further. Where's Todd Gurley, you ask? Well, that man's knee, he's like number 13. He led everything in all the categories last year. But that man's knee is way too murky for me to even want to rank him in the top 10 right now. Nick Chubb, I believe, was number 11, if I had to tell you that, if you're asking where he is. So that's my top 10. Let me know if you want to see more. My name's Sal. I hope you enjoyed this. This is my first running back rankings of the year, at least posting it top 10. Best of luck. And whatever you're doing, daily fantasy, I'm used to saying that. So let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks. We'll have some more videos. Peace out, gang.